Onion Cycles podcast is about thought provoking, emotion evoking, action driven, step by step guidance to explore the unique, glorious, and wonderful ocean of your being. Because healing is a multi layered process of getting to know oneself. Become the self empowered empiric researcher by discovering the unique layers of your existence. With your host, Nadine Alma, welcome to the Holistic Healing Hub. Welcome to the Onion Cycles podcast. The sixth is the foolish wisdom of the flesh, or the false peace of the flesh. I think it has taken us a long time to understand that the body is wise. The body has been manipulated and vilified for millennia as the scapegoat for our own vices. It has taken the sexual revolution and the feminist movement to reclaim the body, to understand that we can trust the body to take us to realms of pleasure and joy that don't have to be separate from our spirituality or religion. That we can trust the body when it comes to nutrition and craving foods that we need or that just bring us pleasure when we are not in a cycle of addiction. That we can trust the body when it comes to alerting us to a dangerous situation or person. That we can trust the body to make us aware of needing to slow down or decrease our stress levels. That we can trust the body to heal. That we can trust the body is more than just a machine to use and misuse at the ego's whim. That we can trust the body has wisdom the intellect can never grasp, like the way a woman's body forms another body within her even as she sleeps. That we can trust the body to tell us who we feel at home with. If we know how to listen, the body has wisdom, blood memory, that reaches back through the centuries and carries the echoes of our ancestors. What this sixth power has come to mean to me is that there is a reticence to change, a reluctance to do what we know is best for us. And we can feel this viscerally in the body. There's a sluggishness, a tendency toward inertia. If we're headed to the couch the second we get home from work, that routine will be arduous to break. The body becomes easily habituated, meaning the routines we create can become ingrained in us. The body is loyal. And if we develop patterns of inaction, we will have to contend with a body that doesn't really want to do anything. Hello, and a very warm welcome to all of you listening out there. Welcome back, my beloved fellow healing onions. I am happy to have you here in this place of vulnerability where we discuss topics that aim at assisting us, supporting us through our journey of self-discovery. And these tools aim at being a tool for a self-empiric research. We are claiming our self-responsibility and our self-empowerment, and in doing so, we discuss every week something that may contribute to our own development, to our own self-growth. We are still in the Being Human series. What you just heard was an extract from the book that is based on the whole series, which is called Mary Magdalene Revealed by Meggan Watterson. Today we are at story 29, episode 30. We are discussing the sixth power, the foolish wisdom of the flesh, and we are going to roughly split this topic into the first two words of the title, meaning we're discussing the foolish side of the flesh and we're discussing the wisdom of the flesh. As you have seen and heard through me reading to you what Meggan Watterson understood about the foolish wisdom of the flesh, the sixth power, is that the body has been vilified and manipulated for millennia, and it has been used as a scapegoat for our vices. I was drawn a lot to this power, but to be honest, I've been drawn to all of the powers so far because they play a huge part, not in the same equal amount throughout my life, but at times one was more prominent, one was less present, and then they switched each other up. But all of the powers so far have played a very intense role in my life. So discovering these powers and discovering that they actually make up the blueprint of what it means to be human, and that they actually enable us to see whatever we go through from a new perspective, the perspective of being gentle and being kind to ourselves, because we are not just divine. We came here to rediscover our divinity, yes, but we are human and we came here to be human. And in accepting that, there's so much effortlessness and lightness coming out of that. And this blueprint of these 7 powers really gave me sort of like a manual to handle anxiety attacks or panic attacks, to handle challenges and hardships in a whole different way. Well, previous I was only looking at it from a psychological point of view, like, oh, there's trauma, or I need to work on that trigger, or how did I come to be in this situation again? I thought I've sort of gone through and learned my lesson, although I know it's cyclical and I know that it's like a vortex spiral that brings up new and new information every time we complete a circle. But all in all, I was always approaching it from a more logical point of view. And then I went in the total opposite direction and went to the spiritual point of view, which is all about inner child work, shadow work, and like uncovering the darkness within, what we suppress, what we depress, what we r- try to erase from our personality and from the mosaic that makes up our soul, right? So now this is the perfect connection between the two, between the logical and the spiritual, between the science and the more of like the feeling knowing, the intuitive knowing within. So it brings in the graceful connection between two parts that are constantly fighting within myself and fighting and battling in my head. And in those powers, I sort of recognize also new possibilities on how I can approach a topic with less of a mindset that I have to be fixed, that I have to heal, that I have to address this, that I have to. And it's more of like, all right, I'm human. I'll just decide today if I want to address this and bring it into the sort of divine viewpoint, if you want, or today I'll just be human and I'll just give into this power, and then the next time it comes up I will see if it serves me or not. So it takes away that strenuous, arduous thoroughness of self-development and the journey of working on yourself, right? So that's why I was so inspired by these powers, and that's why I made the big Being Human series such a big topic so far. And especially this 6th one, the foolish wisdom of the flesh, opens up a whole chapter that explains so much about addiction, and it expresses so much about what we have lost in the current system of a society we live in, right? So if we just look at this from the objective of seeing that we are actually born with the knowledge and the understanding for our body. We are born trusting our body, we are born listening to our body, what we need. And it has come to a point where now we need to reclaim that body. And I'm not talking only about femininity here, or being in a state of suppression and coming back from that. I'm talking like all of humanity needs to reclaim their body, because not in equal measure possibly, but in a wholeness that constitutes of what do we feed our body, what do we put into our body, how do we treat our body, and do we even have the time, or do we take the time to start reconnecting with our body, because reclaiming is one thing, but essentially reconnecting to the body is a whole different. It's a development of a relationship, it's a trial and error, so it's quite hard, and it needs to be a sort of consistent effort, but with a fearless courage to just try out and just trust and just see what comes out of it. So you sort of have to trust the process before you see the result. You have a certain expectation of a result, or you may not. Congratulations to you, but you have to trust before you see the result, and I think that is very hard, because we are a very result driven, goal driven um society, right? So we rarely do anything if there isn't like a destination at the end that we want to reach. Our whole mindset is sort of going into that direction. Or this reclaiming the body, reconnecting with the body, is the essence of what I want to get across through this podcast episode. And we need to also see that this body is more than a machine to use. A body has wisdom, right? So first, let's just dive straight into the foolish part of the body. So why is it foolish? Because, as Meggan Watterson states, there is a reticence to change, and I think most of us have experienced this, right? So New Year's Eve, we make resolutions, and then not even 3 days in, we just discard the resolutions and just live our life the way we used to live it, right? So there's a reticence once there has been established a certain pattern. So foolish because it's easy in taking on behavioral patterns, mostly the ones that are based on instant gratification, because it's easily trained into repetition of vices. So once you have found something where you're able to soothe yourself, or where you are able to numb the emotions that come up or numb the trauma, you just go for that. And then you most of the times only need 1 or 2 or 3 times of doing that, and then it's in you, and you know, oh, that's my go-to vice to run away from what I'm feeling, or run away from the hardships that are presented to me in this life, right? And also foolish because it keeps us safe in doing that. Like, it's a strange thing to realize that our brain thinks that in keeping us in that repetition, it keeps us safe, because it might be uncomfortable in the long term. We might stay in that relationship that is toxic. We might continue binge eating, although we have health problems resulting from it. We might stay at that job, although we know it basically breaks our soul. But in knowing that we know how to deal with it, we know how to handle the situation, there's so much more security than if we just say, no, we want to change, because change is unpredictable, it's infinite, there are infinite possibilities of what could happen. So our brain is like, well, no, we're going to go for the one option where we know what's happening, because then we can, as a team, have that as a safe option, because we know what to do. Whereas if we choose the infinite options that lie in the state of changing ourselves, we have no idea what's in the unknown, and we are scared of the unknown. So therefore we choose what is comfortable and what we know all the time, even though it might not be good for us. So the reluctance to do what we know is good for us is deeply ingrained in our society. And I feel like that's a personal opinion, that may also be a result from sort of disconnecting us humans from nature. It's disconnecting us from rhythm, the rhythm of the earth, the rhythm of the season, the rhythm of day and night. We sort of have gone more and more into artificial environments, and that starts with the workday, that starts with the rhythm throughout the seasons, that we are expected to bring the same amount of work and energy throughout the month, but also even in the half year that nature rests and nature reinvents herself by shedding all her leaves, and everything goes to die and then is reborn in spring. We are also sort of thrown into artificial environments in the way that we have a sterile home, we go into a sterile car, and then we drive to a sterile office or work, and then after that we go back into the sterile home, and the amount we actually spend outside is mostly decided by if it's sunny outside and if you have free time. And even then, you might be so exhausted from the life we're leading that you just decide to stay on the couch, watch Netflix, and basically harm your body by not moving, by overeating, or whatever. So I feel like there's a huge part playing into it of disconnecting the humans as a race from where it came from, which is nature. So that contributes to that reluctance to do what we know is good for us. And there's also such a hard distinction to make. Like, if I'm absolutely drained from energy, how is it that I can pull myself together and do yoga some days, but then other days I am in the same loss of energy state, but the only thing I can do is just scroll on my phones for hours until I fall asleep. Why is that? Why is it so hard for me to feel and really let that come through and speak through and express itself what my body needs, right? I feel like I'm not alone with that. Maybe you want to share that in the comments below. Like, do you struggle with that? Is that couch upon coming home from work sort of like a life-saving buoy in the ocean, and you just want to be there? Or are you able to actually do something for yourself and that contributes to reconnecting to your body or reconnecting to your soul, or any kind of like practice that centers you and balances you out? I'm curious. And like I always say, sharing is caring. So if you do drop a comment, if you do connect with me, it may also contribute to what someone else may need to hear in this time and space. So feel free to do that. But I'm curious, because for me it's quite hard. It's like a constant struggle of feeling into how much energy I've left, if I have energy left, and what I do with that energy. So there are times when I'm able to be very consistent for 3 months and I feel the best I have ever felt. And then I change my environment completely, and suddenly I sort of rattle back in all of the old behavioral patterns that led to me having an unhealthy relationship to my body and feeling unhealthy and feeling not fit and not able to do the things that just 2 months ago I was able to do. So, for example, as of now, I haven't done yoga in a month. And I know that there is like this craving in my body. I do want to get that movement in. I do want to have that consistency because I remember how good it made me feel. However, my other vices just take over. It seems like I'm not even able to do it. For some time, it was functional freeze. Other times, it was just pure sloth behavior. Like I just didn't wanna create the energy that actually then made me come to a consistent practice. And then other times I'm like, well, you work so hard all the time, just relax. You need that now. You will get back to that fitness and that daily routine, right? So it's like a combination of really um behavioral patterns, belief systems, and also probably laziness that make me end up in the reluctance to know I could do something that does me good, but then decide to do something else. And that, I think, has a lot to do with what short attention span addresses, right? So we know that by now, throughout the past 10 years, we have just spiraled down on our attention span. I don't know how it is with you guys out there, but at some nights when I would have had the time to watch a beloved movie of mine or discover a new movie, I wouldn't even consider it because I just wanted to watch shorts. And then I was like, just for a split second in my brain, I was just questioning my whole life's choices because I love movies. I love the message that they can convey, and the impact and the inspiration they're able to give me. But in that instant, I was choosing short videos over a long version of being inspired. And I was really flabbergasted. Like, I love that word, but I was flabbergasted. I was looking at myself and questioning, how did this come to be? Like, where does it come from? And then I was stumbling, ironically, on a short video where someone was talking about, I think he was a motivational speaker or something. So he asked the crowd he was working with if they could put up their arms if they use Netflix once a week or more than once a week, and nearly everybody's hand went up. And then he asked if they wished that Netflix was never invented, and only a handful would put their hands up, and everyone else was no, it's all right. And then he asked the same thing about TikTok, about Instagram, about all those short attention span, instant gratification websites that steal our data and just make money off of our energy and off of our attention, right? So he asked, well, how many of you use TikTok or any of those other apps daily? And all hands went up. And then he asked, well, how many of you wish that this app was never invented and wasn't there? And then he said, to his surprise, almost all hands went up again. So how is it that we so despise how much attention and energy we give away and bring into those apps, but we seem absolutely resistant or unable to let it go and just abort the mission, don't go on the app or delete the app? But that's not possible for the most of us, right? Most of us couldn't do that and couldn't bring themselves to do it. So I feel like the same comes with the reluctance to do what we know is good for us, right? Because the short attention span has caused this chasm, this abyss, this incapability to hold yourself accountable, to train concentration, to stay focused, to not divert or distract or do whatever it takes to be further away from yourself or be in the external rather than dive into the beauty that is your internal, right? In a sense, we touched on that topic on the Art of Love series, and it was part 4, I think, of the Art of Love series. So if you feel drawn to listen to that podcast episode, just go back to that one. We were discussing that what isn't really helping our society today in being aware and being mindful about our lives and our bodies and our emotions is that instant gratification is always around the corner. Like, it's a dopamine high that we almost always, all day, are able to give ourselves through shopping, through scrolling, through swiping, through fast food, through not putting the essential effort into producing something that has value anymore. Anything that has value has to be earned. And I'm not talking about has to be earned in the sense that it's gonna break you, it's gonna be so hard, you're gonna be mentally absolutely broken down. No, what I mean is the essence of life was for more time that we're actually living in this life, in this society right now, was about survival. It was about being in a tribe and providing for the essentials that we need: food, water, shelter, community. So all of this has been stripped away by easy, supposedly easy, instant gratification. We have a smartphone that enables us to connect with people, quote unquote, but we don't connect with people, right? We have a smart home that enables us to get the dishwasher going while we're still at work. Wow, that's just mind blowing. It saves so much time and so much effort, doesn't it? And then we have a TV and a laptop, and we have all these artificial devices and machines that supposedly make our life easier, but simultaneously studies show and numbers show that we are just so unhappy and we are so desperate and we are so not in tune with ourselves and with our nature anymore. And I feel like instant gratification and all of what we have created in the ways of technology has brought us further away from our body as well. So I believe that the foolishness of the flesh, we can find so much more evidence on how this construct, this system we're living is making us ill and is making us disconnect from our body. So the more we sort of disconnect from the technology aspect of our lives, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. As with everything, it's balance. And I'm curious about your opinion. What do you think? But I feel like technology isn't bad, medicine isn't bad, fast food isn't bad, going out and enjoying music and drinking and partying with your friends isn't bad. But as soon as it's a craving, as soon as it's an addiction, as soon as there's no balance anymore, and as soon as we're unable to hear and feel our body and our soul, then it's a problem that we should address. And then from that foolishness, we also want to look at the other point of view, which is the wisdom of the flesh, right? Because if we go away from the foolishness and if we take that journey toward listening more and trying to bring ourselves into our body and not run away from it, there's actually so much wisdom to gain. Um, Meggan Watterson shortly described the word blood memory. So just that we know what that means is on the internet it says epigenetics states that particularly traumatic experiences can alter chromosomes that make up our DNA, right? So blood memory suggests that in our blood there's wisdom. Then we have scientific evidence that water has memory too. And we are 3/4 water, right? We consist of 3/4 of water. So if water has memory too, the water we drink, the water we have in our body, then that adds a lot of wisdom. You can do that on a daily basis as well. Like I don't do it, I'm inconsistent with that. But I feel like seeing the results of this Japanese doctor who put water under a microscope that had two different approaches of being coded. So one bottle of water was encoded with loving words of affirmation, the other one was basically pure destructive abuse. And under the microscope you could see how this affected the way the water particles looked. And if you want to look that up, just Google it. It's everywhere. But I found that quite interesting. So you basically on a daily basis, you could charge your water with whatever you think you need that day. For example, if you want to have a detox day and you decide to water fast, you could just put loving affirmations onto your water, and then while you drink the water, you don't pour it down, you keep a little bit up in your mouth and you sort of chew it, if that makes sense. I think it's called water chewing, where while you chew the water and have it go from one cheek to the other, you say an affirmation that goes with it. For example, cleansing, healing, and diverting, meaning this water that you're chewing and then swallowing, you're telling it that its job is to go into the body and have that water be used to cleanse the body of toxins and heal the body and help repair the cells, and then also divert out of the body anything that doesn't serve you anymore, which I found is a very inspiring way of looking at water and blood memories to realize how much wisdom there can be gained from it, even from an ancestral point of view, and especially on your journey of healing and integrating, right? Because a lot of the topics that may come up may have nothing to do with you. They may just be something from 3 generations back that is still within you and within your blood, and then comes up into consciousness because it wants to be felt, it wants to be transmuted. So I found that a very interesting point of view of what the wisdom of the flesh is all about. In yogic tradition, especially clear, and in energy healers and energy workers, is clear that the body stores and holds trauma and memory, right? So therefore, if it can hold and store that, it can also release it and heal itself through it. And not only on an energetic level, it also heals itself without you doing anything about it. Think of it, if you have a scrape on your skin, the cells of your skin, they don't need to ask permission for you to say, yes, please, stop the bleeding. Immediately, within seconds, the cells react, and over time, a week passes by, and suddenly there's nothing visible anymore, depending on the depth of the cut, obviously. But it's so interesting. You really not have to tell them anything. It's just doing it, right? And the same goes with the growing of baby inside a woman's body. It just shows that these cells, they don't really need me, called Nadine, to tell them anything. They have a wisdom within them to heal themselves. And that's sort of like the perfect example of a symphony of wonder, isn't it? Like, it works so well. I never thought about it before, but now when I get a scrape on my skin or something, I'm like just in wonder, and every day I look at it at least once or twice, thinking how remarkable this works and how remarkable this is. And then, lastly, what I also wanted to address with the wisdom of the flesh is that sort of it acts as a translation of the energy around us as well. It's sort of like an interpreter, isn't it? Like, you can intuitively feel the intentions of others. You intuitively also feel, oh, I'm quite lazy today. You don't always know if it's right to have additional energy to be put into a healthy habit, but you really quite strongly know deep within that you're either lazy and you could still do something, but you decide to be lazy, right? And there's also the intentions that others and ourselves have, but also the connection with earth. I don't know if you've heard about grounding, like walking barefoot. And grounding is a practice that we discussed as well, and it has different layers. But like the connection to the earth, that is disconnected by the rubber on our shoes, right? So if you put your feet back on the earth and walk barefoot 5 minutes a day, the results are remarkable, is what some studies say. I myself do that as well. I love doing that. There is some sense of a relief, and like a breath, a deep breath in and deep breath out, and a release once I put my feet on bare ground and walk on it. So I feel like the body also acts as this connection between the heavens of the earth. Like it's the perfect symbol of autonomy, but also codependency, right? So it's experiencing all of life through the body, and we give so little attention to it in a careful, in a caretaking, in a stewarding kind of way, right? We want it to work. We discover how fragile we are when we are unhealthy. We rarely ever thank for our health and our capacities and capabilities of doing stuff. We just go around all day not even thinking how remarkable of a job these cells are doing for us every day. And we even try to make it better and work like a machine. So how do we fuel that machine? And what are the intentions with that machine? Well, for me personally, I feel like I want to go away from viewing it as a machine and more as a living organism. And every time I consciously decide to be foolish and a sloth, I need to also make myself be aware of the fact that in giving my body this food right now, I'm not doing it any favor. I'm not doing those little cells that work so hard to make me be alive, basically, and give them fuel. And every time I decide to not exercise for a whole day, there is some cells in there that are uncomfortable and that are degenerating because of it, right? And I feel like that's the essence of what I wanted to bring across in this episode, is just a little bit more awareness towards the physical body, because we looked at the physical body in our episode that is called the Four Bodies series, right? We looked at the physical body and what it might need and how it is distracted in the construct, that the system that we have today as a society in the Western world, right? But this episode more so goes into the two aspects and the two extremes, and finding that middle ground, that balance within, to say, right, I can totally be a sloth, but then I also want to be a healthy sloth. So because I wasn't born a sloth, I was born a human, therefore I am intended to walk a lot, and I'm intended to use my hands and express myself, either in the way of providing for myself and my family a good meal by cooking fresh and buying fresh and whole foods, or by looking deeply at how often I exercise, what kind of exercise feels right, and how sometimes it's good to change it up and not always do the same sort of exercise, right? So, with all of that said, I'm really curious. I hope there will be some people that give some insights on their own perception, perspective of this podcast. This should really be an interactive one. I would love to have some of you on the show at some point, and then we could just like bounce around ideas and share visions and share experiences, because innately we humans are storytellers, aren't we? So if someone out there feels intrigued by the prospect, just reach out via email, and you can find that on my website www.wonderfinder.org, where also the worksheet for this week is available for your free download, as every week. For all of you new here listening, this worksheet contains the notes of what we discuss every week, and then also exercises to implement, because we're working here with the motto and the credo of as I think, so I feel, so I act. And I want to emphasize the acting, because thinking and feeling might change a bit, but acting is the essential ingredient to actually have the result you want in the end. How you want to be as a person, you decide who you are, and therefore you can change yourself and change the life around you in doing so. So you're absolutely welcome to download that free worksheet. And please, I hope this episode gives you something, resonates in some sort, in some way or another. And I do sincerely hope to have you listen in on next week's episode. We are discussing the seventh power next week. I am absolutely delighted to share whatever comes up then. And until then, I hope that you continue shining your light. I hope you continue trust to shine your light, and trust yourself to let that shine through you. I hope you're kind to yourselves, and I hope you're kind to others. I do sincerely see you, and I do sincerely believe in you. And I thank you very much for spending your time with me, listening to me. And I hope this was of some merit to you. All the best, my beloved fellow healing integrating onions.